I guess for the record, my name is Michael Lubovich. I am a project manager for Kennedy Jenks, working on the Belfair sewer extension project. And I'm going to share my screen, present some information regarding the update for this project. Can you all see what I have here?
Yes.
Okay, make this. So, quick overview. It's been a while since we've chatted about this project, but so we are currently in the final design phase of the sewer extension project. This is a combination. This project has a couple elements. It started off with, we called it Project 1, which was a general sewer plan and the preliminary design for the sewer extension project. We are currently, in terms of the sewer plan portion of the project, we are preparing the draft for submission to ecology. It'll be submitted to ecology after the first of the year. So we are working on the capital improvement planning portion of that project now, which identifies projects such as this which would be recommended for the next planning horizon. So that's where we are with that. That's currently with coordination. We have a coordination call with ecology coming up in about a week, where we'll be discussing the plans for the general sewer plan, the progress on the general sewer plan. So this presentation here is just to really discuss, or to provide an update of where we are and where we've landed with the design elements for the sewer extension. So as you recall, in coordination with the freight corridor project by WashDOT, there's opportunity to expand sewer where there's areas for future growth and near term horizon growth. So this project has taken a couple different looked at a couple different options, and what we ended up identifying as the preferred option was really extending via the existing collection system. So what I'm showing here is a map which shows three different colors of infrastructure. There's the I guess kind of the outline. The outline in red here is what we're calling essentially phase 1, which would be an extension of the existing collection system from where about that McDonald's is roughly off of SR3, and extending the sewer up through what's currently now just frontage roads, or just kind of more of a dirt road where there's a water line that follows this route. And so paralleling the water line deviates here just to get away from the tank and the well, but it continues on and then up to the commercially zoned area. So that's project 1, and it includes about 8,000 linear feet of gravity pipe, about 650 linear feet of force main, and then a sewer lift station near the northern portion of this. Phase 2 would be an extension through or beyond the county line into the city of Bremerton. Phase 2 is not included in these design plans, but would occur when growth is beginning to develop in this Puget Sound Industrial Center. At that point, the city of Bremerton would be looking to build a lift station of some sort, just given the topography, to get it across the existing or the future highway, the future freight corridor, and then it would flow via gravity into the newly developed collection system down to all up to the treatment plant. What we're showing here is a phase 3, which would be at some point in the future, depending on how growth develops, the different businesses served, and just the flow and loads wastewater flow and loads coming from those areas. There could be a future way down the line where, or future phase way down the line where the city of Bremerton would build a new force main that would discharge collection system flows directly to the treatment plant and not flowing through the collection system. But that is a future phase, which is also not part of this project. But so what I wanted to do is just walk you through I guess, any questions at this point?
Yeah, I don't see anything about going across the road into the other side of Highway 3 where we actually have customers up on top. And I'd like to know, about any conversations we're having for ULIDs.
So in terms of, the customers, I think you were referring to, here. So we looked at this area, and at one point we actually had the pump station located on this side of the property, or on this side of the highway. And looking at the area, the service area here, the number of customers, we actually had tried to get a sewer installed with the roundabout crossing. We looked at getting a sewer installed with the roundabout project, and the timing of that didn't work out to get a future dry line here in it at the time, and that would have served a future pump station located in around this parcel area just north of SR3. When we looked at the cost to increase the sewer line and route it here for the few customers that were present, it was a pretty significant cost increase for the incremental benefit. What we settled on, which made more sense from a cost benefit analysis, was that a larger sewer lift station here could certainly serve a smaller lift station that would be located maybe some point here. There's a low point in the system right about here, and that's where in the future, should these businesses or future growth, really necessitate the need for expanding sewer into this area, then a smaller lift station, more of a grinder style lift station, would likely be installed here, and that would just run a low pressure gravity across the highway, so we wouldn't have to route deep sewer across this highway, and the cost of the casing, the cost of all that effort would have been significant, and I'm not sure it would have been able to recover that within any reasonable amount of time. So there is flexibility to service this area in the future, should that be a direction that that the county would like to go. It would just require small infrastructure improvements right here with the pump station, and then a low pressure force main across the highway.
Commissioners, if I could jump in for a second. And we do have one property owner that is definitely looking to expand within the next couple of years or so, and has expressed interest in connecting. So we're coordinating on that front.
You're talking about on the other side of the Highway 3.
Correct, yes.
We're looking at, it's so funny because we're looking at, we can't afford to go over to the existing customers we have, but all the stuff we're doing right now is for an area that has no customers at all. The places down on the bottom will be able to hook up right now what's existing and their own investment. Again, I'm still having issues with some of this, guys.
So Loretta, I mean, part of the general sewer plan and the capital improvements that are identified there would look at these improvements, such as a pump station here, pump station somewhere in this area, extension of gravity, and the timing of those is what needs to be determined, and that's really dependent on growth and, of course, just the drive to make these connections happen. This is, ultimately, I do believe this is the right infrastructure, and if the pump station and the right infrastructure would include in the future, of course, a smaller lift station here with a small gravity, carrying gravity across this highway from a cost standpoint isn't the most beneficial. But however, running a pump station here and a force main here, and that could certainly be included in the near-term projects if that is timing wise that makes sense for the county.
Do you have a ballpark cost on that? And Loretta, maybe you could speak to maybe the timeline in the just ballpark timeline that you've been coordinating conversation with that side of the road?
Sure. My understanding was that they're about 2 years out. So our project certainly could be in place at the time that that property owner is looking to expand.
And then Michael, how about cost? Ballpark.
Yeah, definitely ballpark here. But I would, just in terms of the cost estimating for a crossing such as this, we're probably looking somewhere between a $500,000 to $1 million. This is a trenchless crossing. We can't just open cut this highway anymore, or couldn't cut this open cut this highway. So we're looking at a trenchless crossing, and that's probably on the order of, like I said, $500,000 to $1 million. And then the pump station improvements itself would be fairly minor, since this is not a not a recently developed road and property. So probably another $500,000 is a ballpark.
Mhm. And I guess, one of the other questions is kind of, along the lines of what I guess Commissioner Netherland is insinuating. And we do have projects that are going through the permitting process, I guess on that east side of 3 along the route of phase 1. What is our plan to be able to get this done so that we can meet that need as they continue through the permitting process and line up our infrastructure planning with their development planning?
So Michael and our team have been coordinating with the engineers for folks that are proposing to develop, not only here, but down along Romance Hill, along Old B, in various locations, to talk about our project schedule, what the design's looking like, and make sure that we're on track schedule-wise with what their project schedule is as well. So Richard, maybe you could speak a little bit more about some of the contacts you've had. And then Michael, if you could jump in. I know you've been closely coordinating with the engineering team of various developers as well.
Yeah, I've had a few contacts, and mostly I've been referring them to Michael, to tell you the truth. But most of my contacts have been for that first phase 1 area property, the multifamily and the housing, the single family housing developments. And we've kept in close contact with them. And like I said, when we get to difficult, more technical questions, I've just referred them on to our engineering consultants.
Yeah, so I guess I could take it from here. So in terms of what I understand the timing of some of these developments to be is breaking ground as early as this coming summer. Our project isn't with the critical path for our project is going to be permitting, and mostly it's the Navy permit for this crossing here. So in terms of getting a biddable set out on the street that's fully permitted, we're being told that this Navy crossing could take as long as up to a year to process that permit. So that's going to be probably one of the most significant potential delays, just in terms of getting this out to bid. The other one would be via Department of Ecology, which is one of the reasons we have a call next week to discuss just the progress of the general sewer plan with them. But they're going to want to see the general sewer plan and probably have it approved before this project can break ground. So those are the two main time schedule delays or schedule impacts that we foresee to get this project out. So assuming all that, if we takes the year, then of course we're looking at breaking ground in the spring of 22. But we're hoping that we can get some of that review expedited and keep the project moving at a more aggressive pace than that. So that's the near term development is what I hear. We've been in contact with the development that was supposed to occur up here, and apparently that has been, I guess, put on hold indefinitely, is what I understand. And I'm hearing about other developments, but nothing has been. I mean, we're really relying on is what's been actually submitted to the county for pre-application, and that's what's driving our understanding of the schedule.
Yeah, I just on the timeline there, Michael. My understanding was that they were looking at for the single family and multifamily a spring groundbreaking, and so if you could maybe just run that down, and make sure that I don't want this to become a self-fulfilling prophecy. Where we're out of with all this to kind of be out of communication or have a different timeline in mind. So if you wouldn't mind just tracking that down and confirming that and trying to figure out how we get into alignment. And I think there's probably work we can do on the permitting side with the Navy and that kind of thing. So I appreciate you bringing that up, but really just want to make sure that we're singing from the same hymnal, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I appreciate that. And in addition to that, we've talked about strategies to phase this construction work out. If this permit is going to be the main, schedule impact, we could always advance this portion of the construction earlier, and then this second half of the construction project would then just follow later when this Navy permit has been processed.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. 'Cause that is exactly what we were discussing, was various schedules so that we can be in sync with what development is being proposed. And Commissioner Schutte, yes, we all are on the same page that they're preparing to break ground in spring, and they've got quite a bit of earthwork to do. And so that's why Kennedy Jenks has advanced the design to the point that it has, so that we know what those grades are for the sewer and how that relates to finished grades that are being proposed for the site development.
I appreciate that. And then the other thing that I would just kind of note too, and is when we had accepted Commerce's offer of the loan portion of the funding for this, there were different triggers in there for reducing even further the interest on
Yes.
the money that we borrowed, down as low as 0.25% interest on the loan, which is an even further savings than what was already extended as a base interest rate. And so just keeping that timeline in mind for those triggers, I think is also a concern that I have, so that we're really absolutely plugging away so that we can maximize the savings that we can have on the interest.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Michael hit it on the head. They've met everything in terms of their schedule and timeline. We're a bit concerned about where we are with ecology and their ability to review and approve and turn things around. And so we're looking forward very much to our meeting with ecology and making sure that they understand those points as well, and what we can do to make sure and reduce our schedule. Make life easy for them to review and turn things around.
Definitely appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So this might be a stupid question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. So the phase 2, if the bypass, well, I guess the freight corridor, if it is put in, if it's already in, wouldn't it be cheaper to, I mean, you said that it's trenchless, so you can't cut through the road. Does that still matter when the corridor is in?
Uh,
Good question, Commissioner.
so are you referring to, I apologize, this crossing right here?
Yeah, over. So phase two, when we're putting in, you've already got some people up there in phase two that could attach to the sewer now. And you said that one of the reasons that you were putting that into phase two was because of the cost and the timing and that you couldn't cut through the road. So my question was, if we already have the freight corridor in, are we still prohibited from cutting through the road and making the cost less?
So I think we're talking about two different crossings potentially here. So the existing customers are on the north side of SR3, where there's the existing highway. The freight corridor is this green line here, which is there's no existing customers in this vicinity as of now.
Right.
So the highway is here, and if we were to cross this now, we couldn't just put an open trench through the highway. The WashDOT would require us to use trenchless construction to go under the highway so that we don't disturb the road. For this one, you're absolutely right. We could very well easily install an 8-inch force main that goes from one side of the right of way to the other side of the right of way, and WashDOT would then, once they build their highway over it, they would be required, and they would on their own case this pipe according to their own standards. And that's been in discussion. The branches here in yellow really hinge on the coordination between the county and the city of Bremerton. Since this line would mainly serve the Puget Sound Industrial Center, of course owned by City of Bremerton limits, or within City of Bremerton city limits, and they would need to really put in that commit to that investment for this infrastructure here, and that is where we're currently in. I guess the county is currently negotiating with the City of Bremerton in terms of how much infrastructure they would like to construct as a part of this loan or available money now versus installing it later when they actually start to see growth develop here.
I think I was more targeted toward the log yard road and to the folks on that area, so I was just trying to figure out determine if we could, when the corridor is in, can we go over SR3 and help the people that are already up there on log yard road? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. I think I understand it. So at any point the county desires this, you can install this future infrastructure, the pump station and the low pressure force main, to cross this existing SR3 highway at any point. There's no, if they were working on another project to open cut, like a roundabout project would have been a good example. That would have been a good time to put a line in across the highway using trenched methods, because they're literally cutting up the highway already. That window has closed. There's no opportunity to really just lay a pipe open cut across this highway anymore. So there's really no, so the driver for the schedule, what allows this, there's no limitation on when the county could elect to build this infrastructure. So you could say today or next year, we want to install this pump station and this force main to service these properties, and then it can be done, obviously, if as long as the funding was available and of course this general sewer plan is approved. So those are really what's holding that back. The only reason we stopped at this point was from looking at the core needs for this project, and really the intent of this project was to was to extend line up to, the Puget Sound Industrial Center. And that was one of the main drivers for this project, which this satisfies. This gets it to where the city of Bremerton can say, okay, I can easily connect into this collection system. In addition, this also serves, areas that are slated for growth.
All right, that works. Thank you.
Hey, Michael, one of the things that we should gather for commissioners, and I apologize, commissioners, we didn't have that today, would be the cost to provide service to those properties on the west and north side, the existing properties of SR3, and how many ERUs we would be picking up. So you could see what that benefit cost ratio is. And apologies that we don't have that for you today. We'll get that to you shortly.
Just ask when you do, please separate out the additions that we are already getting because of the existence of the sewer. Granted, they're not in there yet, but you can't give credit to this project for projects that are already coming in because the other existence of it. So when you're looking at the 340 ERUs, please don't include them as the benefit of this project.
Why wouldn't you, Commissioner?
Because that is the benefit of the old project, because that is literally right off of the old project's hookups. And anybody that was going to be hooking up there would be building the infrastructure themselves to hook up to that line right there by McDonald's. Both of the developments are right there off of that line, not off of this extension, unless we take it and run it through directly for them. They're already scheduled to hook up.
I'm not sure I completely agree with that. I mean, it's not an issue I'm going to make at this point. I think it's, but I'm not necessarily sure I agree with that, but we keep moving.
Let's see. Oh, and one other point, I'm sorry, before we jump off that, Michael.
Sure.
If we could go back to the freight corridor crossing and City of Bremerton discussions we've had with Bremerton. So far, they have stated, so the planning is for all of the future phases. They are absolutely totally on board on that. But they are recommending and wanting to delay construction, for example, of that crossing and that leg that connects into the purple until a future phase, which Michael has shown here as phase 2. And the reason being is that they figure that development is far out enough on their side that it would not be worth investing or putting that expensive infrastructure in the ground at this time. So they've already looked at, because we said, all right, maybe it makes sense to go ahead and get that crossing in place now. And Bremerton felt, no, that's a fairly simple crossing, and really we don't need to have that pipe and that lift station all in the ground sitting there for 10 or so years before we're making use of it. So Commissioner Trask, good question. I mean, anywhere we could think about savings and making those crossings ahead of the freight corridor, we've been looking at that.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right, Michael.
Okay, I was just going to go over kind of where we are currently in the design. So similar to that graphic I showed before, this is the outline of the project area. So I'm going to hone in a couple of our design sheets. This is the crossing here, and this is the lift station. The rest of these are gravity and pressure main drawings, and they're maybe not as exciting as these two here. So I was going to just discuss those in a little bit more detail. So, as I discussed before, one of the challenges is of course this crossing under the railroad. What makes it a little bit more challenging is that it's also the low point between a couple ridges. And so what this ends up doing is it ends up driving. So I'm gonna show you what we are looking at here. So this is the center line of the railroad. If you're looking, let's see, how do I explain this? So if I were to zoom into the crossing, so the railroad runs here, and that's what we're doing is basically just taking a cross section. So if you were to look, I can draw on this. Can I draw on this? Comments.
Commissioner Michael's grabbing that. You're familiar with where the water line maybe crossed under the Navy rail to go up to serve the new MTA center? This is the location we're talking about.
Mm-hmm. So I can highlight that too here. The water line. Let's see if I can make this work here. Water line runs roughly here, and this is the sewer line crossing. So what we're talking about is basically an open pit here, an open pit here, and you run a line under the railroad track, which runs a lot of lines here, but railroad track is there. I'll make this maybe a different color. Change the color. So what we're doing is if you take a snapshot looking this direction from here, that's what we have right here. So I'm looking north essentially down along the railroad and going from left to right or west to east. Here's the sewer line that is crossing under the railroad track. So like you can see this dashed line here represents the topography or the ground surface adjacent to the railroad. So you can see that the railroad sits, as a low point between these two high spots, and so that drives down the depth of the gravity line as we're continuing to cross along. We'd like to keep it gravity so that there's less infrastructure to maintain, and it's just an overall just a better strategy when possible. So for that short segment here, the gravity line gets a little deep, but this is all undisturbed area, so not trying to shore up with buildings on either side of the trenching, so that makes construction easier, it being just all greenfield project. So wanted to just highlight this is the trenchless crossing. This is the drawing that is going to be submitted to the Navy for permitting purposes. There is an existing easement for the water line there. So there's an existing easement for this water line, and the goal here is the objective here is to get the sewer line installed within the existing easement. The easement language, it's a utility easement, and it does indicate that that it would serve not just water but other utilities such as sewer. So it falls within the language of the easement, and that would help expedite the review process by the Navy. So that's the current strategy, is to get that installed approximately there, and then from there it continues on up to the pump station and force main discharge. So this is that drawing, that first drawing that I showed on there on the overall map key or key map. Any questions about this and this, I guess, this process?
Not for me.
Okay. The other drawing I wanted to show is just the lift station itself, the site plan. So trying to keep this, simple and have it mimic the other facilities that owned by the by the county, specifically Pump Station 1 was really the basis for the way this looks, providing similar features. There's a 3-sided canopy structure here that would over the electrical equipment. So you have, let me just overview here. We have fencing. So everything is in gray is within the fence line, and it's all pavement. You got a fence that goes around it. You have a gate to access. You have your wet well where your pumps sit, and they discharge into a mechanical, valve vault, which will have the valves to turn on and off, open and close the pipes. They join together and they discharge through the force main, which is the pressure sewer that goes out to the 650 feet of force main that we show on the first figure that goes out to the collection system. So sewer comes in, goes through the pumps, out the valve vault, and out to the street. We've got electrical equipment here. We've got a standby generator here to provide backup power, and then there are odor control or provisions for odor control over here in this side of the building or the side of the site. So picking up where I started, there's a 3-sided, there's a canopy structure here, and this is your 3-sided construction masonry unit block wall. Provides sound attenuation and a little bit of weather protection. And then this, like I said, the canopy here that protects the workers that are working on electrical cabinets, possibly in the rain. And then the canopy does not extend over the generator. So you have a standby generator with its own sub-base mounted fuel tank. And then utility transformer. And that essentially is the site. We have provisions for odor control. We have a biofilter shown here, and this is actually going to be a future biofilter, and then a future chemical injection bioxide, if needed, depending on the odors that are generated from the sewer collection system. Some of the challenges with a new lift station like this, unlike the other lift stations that were installed, where there were customers, there's no current customers here serving this lift station. So as development occurs and as growth is generated in this area, you'll go from essentially zero flow to some number of sewer volume coming into the pump station. And so given that that gradual increase of sewer connections and flow generated from the collection system, there's just potential for odors to be an issue in the early stages when the flow is low, and which is why we have this area here designated to provide odor control if required. So if the odors do become a concern, then a small chemical injection system can be installed here, tank and a little chemical skid that would feed chemical into the wet well, similar to that you have at Pump Station 1. Any questions about the pump station site?
A real quick one. So we have the equipment in, how, and we want to use it, obviously, but how long does the equipment last? I mean, do you have to upgrade it when we get more customers? Kind of see where I'm heading.
I do. Yes. So there is, so the lift station here, there is no, we've designed this lift station or designing this lift station to handle now to build out capacity of the area. So we're looking at a couple 100 gallons a minute at build out. And so these pumps would be able to handle that entire range. How long they last, would be, I mean, mechanical equipment is anticipated to last between 15 to 25 years, depending on what it is and how it's maintained and operated. So I think that we're looking at a minimum of 15-year life for these pumps. But I've certainly been inside of lift stations like this that have pumps that have lasted 40 years. So It all just depends on how often it's exercised, the type of sewer that you accept down here. If there's rocks and chunks like that, that'll wear out the pumps faster than more soft debris that might come in.
Gotcha. And so we just have to make sure that Richard's folks are maintaining it properly. Right, Richard?
Right.
I have no doubt, but
Yeah, and in the meantime, before the first drop of sewage is received, this would be set up in a way where you'd have clean water in here and configured in a way where you can run the pump. You can cycle the pumps, from a maintenance standpoint, just to keep them ready, keep them ready to go. You'd exercise them with clean water up until the point where you finally get sewer coming in. You wouldn't just leave them dry for multiple years if it did take that long. But I think that's what we're hearing in terms of at least from the park and ride. And I mean, it's in construction, and that's going to be a source of sewer into the wet well, to the pump station.
gotcha. So it's good to exercise not just us, but our pumps as well.
Nothing like sitting idle.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Last thing I was going to do is cover some cost and schedule. So this was the latest engineer's opinion of probable construction cost. It was developed at the 30% setup, 30% submittal that we provided back in October. So this is where the current project currently stands. I wanted to just explain this really quick. So we have our general description, general project elements. So we have the lift station, the force main, the gravity sewer as a whole, and then we separate out the trenchless crossing, which is in this case going to be they will install a casing that they'll run the gravity sewer within. So then these total based on materials, installation costs, and equipment, and then the subcontractor, specialty subcontractor costs here. Then you get it from that, you generate a total. And then in the construction world, there are just general markups that we would anticipate from this base cost. So we would have division one costs would be mobilization, demobilization, legal costs, contract setup, and we provide an allowance for that. We have contractor overhead or contractor markup subs, contractor overhead and profit markup. So usually contracts allow 10% markup of subcontractors, and there's always an allowance for them to make money because that's how they stay in business. And then we have our construction contingency cost. And at this stage of the game, 30% design, 30% contingency is an appropriate number to use. And this includes things that we just haven't gone into the level of detail, things that we aren't yet included in the design plans that we can't cost out, but we know there will be such things included in the design and that will be required for construction. So can't capture everything at this early in the game, so we provide a contingency. This comes down as the design progresses, and more and additional stuff is included. Items are included in these base costs. There's a midpoint of escalation of from the midpoint of construction, which basically accounts for inflation over the next 2-3 years, depending how long we anticipate when the construction completion will occur. There's sales tax, of course, that gives us a number. We round it, and then we have this estimate accuracy. So there is a guideline, AACE guideline on how what accuracy ranges you apply to cost estimates. This number, as much as we would love to say, this is how much your project will cost, there are other influences that we cannot predict, such as just the market itself, cost of steel that could go up or down, And so there's a number of other influences there. And so we apply an accuracy range and say, so this is your base cost, $6.5 million. But for planning purposes, it could really be anywhere between plus 30%, which is 8.4, or minus 15%, which is 5.5. And as the design progresses and we get closer from 30%, 60%, 90%, and final, these ranges go down. I think they ultimately end at plus 10, minus 5. I've seen them as low as plus 5, minus 5. But this is really a tool for budgeting appropriately. If you were to bank on this number and then think that you've got an extra, $2.5 million that you have available to spend, and you start designing other improvements, and then you get to the construction bid and it ends up being closer to this number, then you've eaten up that allowable budget that you may have thought you had available to you. So for planning purposes, we provide this, and this is usually a good number to be prepared to spend if it comes down to it. And that, again, hinges on the bid itself. Any questions on the cost estimate?
So I know that lumber has gone up during this virus. Do we anticipate iron or anything else going up?
In general, there's a lot of things that have been challenged because of COVID. Manufacturing itself, and there's been delays in manufacturing. There's been limited productivity. It's been reduced productivity from manufacturing facilities, which generally means then that equipment costs are going to be going up. So I guess it all really depends on what the status of the industry is when this gets bid. So if that's this summer, then if manufacturing has gone back to regular production, I would expect some efficiencies would have come out of that from all the effort that folks have been putting through because of COVID measures. So it's really hard to predict, but we can definitely, what we do is we track what's been trending, and we update our costs based on the current trends.
Gotcha. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Schedule. Wanted to show, this is, Loretta mentioned, we're tracking on schedule. This is our latest schedule update, and we're currently working towards, like I said, the 60% design plans is what we're currently working towards a 60% set of plans. We submitted the 30% back in October. We've got several meetings coming up in the next couple weeks to discuss some design features, specifically at the pump station. Of course, then discussions will also with ecology. Right now, we're also advancing that trenchless crossing sheet for early submission to the Navy. So that is one sheet where the design is advanced a little bit further, so that we could get that to a point where we can send it to the Navy to start their process, their 1 year, up to 1 year turnaround process. So I want to get that in as soon as possible so the clock starts ticking for them. And that's what we've done. That's our strategy there, and that's what we're working towards. We expect to be done with the construction set, ready to bid in May. But again, that's what's going to drive that schedule, like I said, is the permitting process itself. We can certainly, if needed, we could bid the project, but we wouldn't be able to really negotiate the contract and get that locked in with the contractor until the permits are secured. And so there's not sure there's necessarily a reason to drive that whole project on that schedule. But like we talked about, there's the potential to phase out the lower portion of the gravity sewer that doesn't hinge on that Navy permit, to keep the development community moving forward. And that is the end of, as the last page I have.
Well, I think it's an
Any,
excellent presentation. Thank you.
welcome.
Thank you, Michael. And Commissioners, just a quickie, Michael and the Kennedy Jenks team and their sub-consultants have been just right on point on this project. And we've really appreciated the relationship with them. Michael's been very responsive and we've been on schedule and for the most part under budget on the design phase. So that's, we've appreciated their work.
Thanks, Loretta.
Yes, and thank you.
All right,
Yeah, thanks so much,
Commissioners.
Michael. Appreciate it.
Welcome. I'll turn off the screen share.
Thank you, Michael.